Anyone over here? No? Okay, we will now continue this public hearing as taxing authority for the BCC countywide dependent special districts and MSTU levies as previously referenced by taking public comment from citizens who wish to be heard regarding our FY24 budget. And I do believe that I had all of the blue cards for public comment. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, and is there anyone else here? I guess everyone is, oh, okay. So, Commissioner Eggers, do you want to make your comments now or later on?
When it's appropriate, I'd like to do it before you vote.
Okay. Whatever you prefer.
All right, I'm just going to make some comments. Please be patient with me. My comments are probably reflect a lot of folks' feelings around this dais, but I know we have the same kind of intention to take care of our residents. How we get there, it's always a little bit different. So, first and foremost, I think we need to do what we can to assist our taxpayers, especially those who are getting hit the hardest with this tax increase. All of the inflationary pressures that we're feeling, these same ones that are experiencing out-of-control insurance cost increases, other inflationary pressures, making their financial difficulties worse. First-time home buyers entering the housing market and those who are arriving into Florida are also buying for the first time, and any other new construction added tax income. The second group most affected are those who have 10% cap on property value increase, like renters, like affordable housing renters and businesses. The owners of these entities simply pass through the increases in these and other costs, such as insurance, such as insurance. Since 55% of the properties are capped at 3% and 10% on this category, there's a large number of folks who make up those first-time buyers and new property owners coming into the state. Second point I want to make, I'm concerned that we're creating some spending habits that will have to be dramatically changed in the next few years, or an increase in millage will be necessary. Staff said that this year's revenues are covering expenses with no surplus being available for reserves. So reducing the millage rate to reduce the income stream will also allow us to spend within our means. With a 4 to 6% increase in revenues versus that 11.7% that we're talking about. Exploding size of government, not necessarily in people, but in dollars. The reserve level being, the next point I want to make, the reserve level being proposed is 20.8%. We talked about it earlier today. And so we've got a new policy at 20.8%. Obviously, I didn't vote for that. I think it creates an issue. There are other avenues to get monies if we need the monies during difficult times. And as I said earlier, the GFOA, some of the most conservative employees, have stated as best practices a reserve level of 16.7, or approximately 2 months of operation costs. So why the 20.8% arbitrary number? We know if there's a catastrophic issue. I talked a minute about that, just a minute ago about that. It is incumbent on elected officials. Hold on one second. I'll make sure I had the sheets in the right order here. Excuse me. And we also have lines of credit that are available to a low debt county like us. And reimbursements, even though they take some time, we saw that at the earlier meeting, will be forthcoming. Millage rate, there's millage rate confusion. The current millage is 4.7398. That includes I assume this, and Chris, if you can nod your head, it includes the 2 previous and the newly proposed additional millages. One of them was for transportation stabilization, transportation fund stabilization, and another one for enhanced road service, and then a new one for, I think it was 9th cent add-on. Additional level of service, another 0.0218. The first millage is being added because the state won't allow the gas tax fund to include electric cars' fair share of roadway and won't allow us to index that fund like they do at the state level. The second millage perhaps should be funded by the penny and maybe find projects that could be pushed out. The millage rate in 2019 was 5.275 and would otherwise have been reduced even further. Perhaps it is time to separate out that sheriff's millage so that we can clearly show our residents what our public safety dollars are all about and how much we support that. A couple more points and I'll be finished. Having said all of that, there's a number of state unfunded mandates that we have had to cover. There are salary increases in our sheriff's department to maintain our force levels. There are salary increases with our other staff to try and keep them here. New salary increases up to $3 an hour. I think it's $18 an hour is the minimum salary, minimum hourly rate. There have been some retirement requirements for our first responders, some additional personnel, and our supervisor of election. So I recognize that the budget is tight. We continue to have talks about the bed tax and the restricted use of those funds. The discussions are much needed, are important for a substantial part of the economic success of Pinellas County. Nonetheless, when you talk museums, stadiums, etc., when inflation is running rampant, it is nice to say a small millage rate matters. A small millage rate reduction. I'm not the smartest person in the room. I look over at our staff sitting here, and I certainly can see that a 0.2 mil decrease, or about $25 million, is about 0.8% of our budget, probably less than the total budget than that. Just find it. Find penny money to replace the other capital millages. Reprioritize the $90 million a year we get in penny. The second alternative is to prioritize the state doing something with the gas tax. We have to worry about that in the off season, of course, because we will be talking to them before they go up to Tallahassee again. We could also start to redefine service levels and consider permanently keeping our reduced workforce where it is and not filling the positions that haven't been filled. Our aging workforce, average 52 years old, retires, will begin to replace with younger people at lower salaries and perhaps further provide us an opportunity to reorganize some of our operations. And we could also use some of the reserves each for the next 2 to 3 years as we transition. So I just think it's important that we think about that as we move forward and rubber stamp this budget, that we have some really hurting people in this county, and sometimes symbolism matters. I kind of joked at the Mayor's Council with Mayor Welch sitting in the room, and I looked at all that. I said, you know, even St. Petersburg reduced their millage, and of course, he chuckled and he had a good spirit about him. So anyway, I wanted to make sure that some of these comments were on the record. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.